Welcome to Figure Feedback. My name is Jeremy, and I am a huge fan of Hue Forge. Hue Forge is an amazing way for you to decorate your space with some amazing artwork that you can 3D print in the comfort of your own home. And best of all, the vast majority of the time, it doesn't take much filament to do, and you don't waste a lot of filament in the process. I printed a lot of different Hue Forge things, but the only thing about Hue Forge is it's a learning curve. And in order to get the result that you want, you have to learn the software and you have to just kind of figure it out for yourself. So naturally, there had to be something that eventually came along to make that whole Hue Forge experience more accessible and easier. And this time it's come from Bambu Lab because they have just released a new feature from their Maker Lab, and it is called Chroma Canvas. And let's take a look at it right now. Now, Chroma Canvas is very similar to Hue Forge, but is not as feature-packed as Hue Forge. This is really something that will kind of get your foot in the door and let you create some Hue Forge-inspired prints without having to go through the complexities of trying to get it to work through Hue Forge. Now, before some people may say that, oh, they've ripped off Hue Forge and whatnot, I don't think that's the case here, because if we go to create blank here, it says down here that this is inspired by the commercial software Hue Forge, and it's recommended for users seeking more professional features. So they at least mentioned Hue Forge and said that, yeah, this is inspired by it. And if you need something that's more advanced, go over there and try it. But this is just something that is just more simple. All right, so let's take a look at this. Now, you can take any picture that you have, you download off the internet, you throw it in here, and you play around with the colors to create this Hue Forge-like final product. And I'm going to do that here with the photo that I've gotten off the internet. And this is artwork of Gohan and Piccolo from Dragon Ball Superhero, the movie. This is some artwork that someone created from it. And I'm just going to hit start right here. It's going to load this up, and it's going to bring us to this interface that I think is very familiar, especially these days when it comes to taking a photo and applying different filters to it, because that's pretty much what this is here. So they have all these different categories. This is mono, but we can move it over to black and white. Here's golden age, deep blue. We have infrared, purple, blue, and we can just kind of just go through these pre-selected, pre-created color palettes here. And then at the bottom, it tells you what color filaments that you are going to need for when you create this. This one will take 4 different filaments here, but some of these other ones only take 3 color filaments, and this one only takes 2. This one here, it only has 2 as well. So you just kind of pick and choose what you want to do. So let's say that you wanted to do a 4-color print. You can even customize the palette here. You see, you can take away some filament, you can add filament, and it has some more advanced features like the color distances here. You see all that? It showed you like the layers that these are going to change so that you can print. So it's going to start with black, it's going to move to red, it's going to move to orange, and then it's going to move to yellow to just finish everything off. And you can rearrange these colors if you want. And as you rearrange them, you can see that it's changing in real time over on the right side. So you can choose to do things that way if you want, and then you can go down to color tone here. And I'm not going to go over like every single feature, this is just a broad overview. And you can change the way that the photo looks, just like if you were editing any other photo by changing the exposure and see what that does to it. You can play around with the contrast. You can play around with the highlights. If it's a bit too bright, you can lower the highlights a bit. If you want the shadows to pop more, you can bring that up, or you can just make the blacks a little bit blacker by turning those shadows down. And then if you want, you can just reset everything back to the original. So this is what I've decided to do. Oh, and you also have the color curve here. So I wanted to play around with this particular photo. And another cool thing about this, I'm just going to select one of these Let's just say this one, all right? Another thing that you can do is you can separate the foreground and the background of the photo. So right here, this is just the background, this is just how it's going to look. But if you click on add foreground, there's two different selections that you can use. You can use object selection, which is what you're just clicking around, and you're going to let the software determine what you clicked on. And like, hey, do you want to select all of this? Or you can use the color wheel, which you will select a range on the color wheel to pick all the pixels within that hue as the foreground. This is ideal for separating areas by color rather than by object. So let's just look at object selection. So with object selection, as you move the mouse around, you can see that whatever is highlighting is going to have that be the foreground. And you can see here that everything that you hover over is going to highlight it, and everything that's highlighted is going to be considered the foreground of the picture. So I can just click on Gohan here, and most of him is in the foreground, but you can also kind of see there's some little parts right here that aren't quite in the foreground. So you just kind of have to fine tune it like that. Then you can click on Piccolo and be like, yeah, I want that to be more of the foreground as well. And then kind of get down here where his pants are. So you just try to do the best that you can. And you can also paint and erase an area directly if you don't want to rely like on the magic tool. And that's a cool way to do that. And I have an example of how that turns out. All right, so let's just say that this is the foreground that I want. And I've got this all highlighted the way that I want to. All right, so I can hit finish split right here. And then I have the options for the foreground and the background, and I can give them different colors. So if I want Gohan and Piccolo to be a different color, a different shade, I can make them, let's say, infrared. And the background will stay the same color as it is. And you can still just play around with the different shades and all the different colors that you want. Let's say you wanted to keep that just like that. And when this prints out, it is going to look very similar to this with the background and the foreground being different colors here. And if you're satisfied with that, you can just go up to export. It's going to ask for the printer that you're going to be using. These are just all Bambu Lab printers. And then you choose your nozzle size from 0.4 or 0.2. You hit confirm, and it is going to create a 3MF file for you to put into Bambu Studio to print this out. But you don't have to use Bambu Studio. You can still take this file. You can put it into Orca or whatever you like. That's exactly what I did. And I used that file, and I didn't print this out on a Bambu Lab printer. I printed it out on the Wonder Maker ZR. And this is what happened. So this is how the image turned out on that printer. And one thing that makes this different than the other Hue Forges that I've printed out is because I separated the foreground from the background, they are actually jutting out in the picture, and they are, separated from the background. So it creates depth to this as well. And I thought that that was really cool. Definitely could have done better on some of these colors. I do think that it's a bit washed out for the white. I would have selected some different colors for if I were to do this again, but the result I think is still pretty darn cool. And all the settings were just baked into that file. So I didn't have to choose manual filament changes or anything like that. Everything was all ready to go. So while this may not be a straight up replacement for Hue Forge, it is a very cool way for you to grab whatever photo that you want and then just use this web-based interface to stylize it in the way that you see fit. Because maybe you just don't have the time to try to learn Hue Forge. Maybe you just don't have the funds to purchase the software and then try to figure it out from there. Or maybe you will, and you just kind of want to dip your toes in and see that if this is something that you're even interested in, you kind of get started here, and then you take your time and your money over there to Hue Forge in order to get some more advanced feature sets out of this process. But yeah, if you're interested in it, I mean, it's up there on MakerLab. I'll leave a link to it. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. You can play around with it. And who knows, maybe you can make some cool Christmas gifts or something out of it. I don't know. Do whatever you want. But that's all for now. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon.